Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Matters of Faith, the radio show. Matters of Faith is a show designed to bring issues of interest to you, the listening audience, that will challenge, encourage, motivate, and inspire you to keep the faith. I am your host, the Reverend Dr. J. Lauren Russell, and it's my job to engage you in stimulating dialogue that's inspiring, encouraging, motivating, dialogue and conversations that will help you build your determination, your commitment, and your character. Conversations that will help you keep the faith. Everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John 5 and 4. And now, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, without further ado, it is time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Good evening, everybody. Today is Monday, November 14th. It's 8 o'clock, and it's time for Matters of Faith, the radio show. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the article, Called for a Purpose. And my very special guest tonight, Marcel Florestal, Esquire. You don't want to miss this show. Tell a friend that Marcel Florestal is on Matters of Faith, and it's other Are the trustees in your house of worship knowledgeable of all of their fiduciary responsibilities? Are the disciples of your house of worship aware of the Lord's biblical economic strategies? Are you planning to renovate, build, refinance, or develop your church property? Well, the JLR company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, is here to help you. Give us a call at 718-328-8096. That's 718-328-8096. Or visit our website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. At the JLR Company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, it's not about the castle, it's about the kingdom. Get your copy of Matters of Faith, the book. You can use the Cash App, $Matters of Faith. The book is $22.80, which covers shipping and handling. Or you can send a check or money order to the JLR Company, Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. You can also get the book as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. There is a 50% discount if you act now. Check out the Eat Okra app for black-owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, get the Eat Okra app. Now please, subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Triumph Physical Therapy. With 3 locations in Harlem, Triumph Physical Therapy has become the go-to provider for musculoskeletal care. Did you know that up to 40% of extremity pain can come from a spinal source? Did you know that you can cure your knee, hip, or ankle pain by doing back exercises? Did you know that you can cure your shoulder, elbow, or wrist pain by doing neck exercises? Did you ever wonder why your knees bother you when you are sitting and not using them? Well, at Triumph, they do their best to answer those and any other question you may have. They use a unique approach that is based on the latest research in science and musculoskeletal care. Now, their approach works, and their patients will testify to that. I know I'm one of them. Don't take my word for it. Try it for yourself. Before you take that pill or schedule that surgery, give them a call at 212-234-2900. That's 212-234-2900. Triumph Physical Therapy, the go-to provider. 212-234-2900. Love Thy Neighbor Incorporated project is preparing for their annual Back to School drive. They are collecting backpacks, book bags, lunch boxes, pencils, erasers, sharpeners, crayons, coloring books, calculators, socks, shoes, sneakers, and snacks. For shipping and giving instructions, follow them on their Facebook page, love_thy_neighbor_project. That's love_thy_neighbor_project, or just simply visit their website, www.lovethyneighbor7.org. That's www.lovethyneighbor7.org. Every gift makes a difference in the lives of our children. www.lovethyneighbor7.org. Please, ma'am, please, sir. More than ever, we need to make sure that we get vaccinated. This virus is not quite over yet. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for someone that you love. Anyone age of 5 and above are eligible to be vaccinated, boosted and reboosted. Please, ma'am, please, sir, get vaccinated. And now the article, Called for a Purpose. That article can be found first in thebronxchronicle.com, www.thebronxchronicle.com, or you can find it in the Yonkers Insider, both online newspapers. Go to www.yonkersinsider.blog, or just simply type in Matters of Faith and you'll find the article, either in the Bronx Chronicle or the Yonkers Insider, Called for a Purpose. Colossians chapter 4, verse 17 from the New King James Version. And say to Archippus, take heed to the ministry which you have received in the Lord, that you may fulfill it. Called for a purpose. There's an old saying that there is a purpose for everything, and everything has a purpose. This idiom points to everything as having a use and a reason for being. It may not be the reasons you think, but everything has a cause for being. How would you react if you suddenly discovered that your cognitive abilities were suddenly limitless, that your perception, memory, judgment, and reasoning were suddenly and remarkably precise? If you instantaneously had the ability to calculate any mathematical equation accurately and effortlessly, if you could remember anything you heard or saw word for word and exact detail, if suddenly you realized that you knew the cure to every form of cancer, the cure for AIDS, COVID-19, the solution to violence, and the formula for world peace, how would you react if you discovered that you could play any song on any instrument after hearing it only once, or could speak and understand any language without ever taking a course? Would you agree that you were a person of purpose? I am exaggerating to make a point. Some of us have talents, skills, abilities, and gifts that rival or even surpass those that I've mentioned. The problem is that we often do not discover them and end up taking those talents, skills, and abilities and gifts to our graves. We never discover their purpose, or we take their purpose for granted and never use them at their full potential. Everything that we are engaged in, every work, every relationship, every endeavor, has a purpose that can potentially and hopefully positively affect the lives of everyone who we encounter. In the text, Paul is writing to Archippus to encourage him to be steadfast and to fulfill or complete his ministry. We do not know what his ministry was, but we do know that it was God given. Archippus could be any of us. The ministry could have been given to any of us. Paul's encouragements could have been directed to any of us, because each of us were called and given a ministry or work for a particular purpose. Our greatest challenge is to discover that purpose so that we don't take our ministry with us to our graves. Be blessed. So here is my question tonight. In what ways are you using your God-given talents, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose? Let me ask it again. In what ways are you using your God-given talents, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose? Now, this gives me a great deal of pleasure because I get the chance to introduce my guest tonight. He's a friend, he's awesome, and I think you'll enjoy him tonight. So, without further ado, Marcel Florestal is the principal and founding member of the Florestal Law Firm PLLC. He practices tax, trust, and estates and civil rights litigation and has over 20 years of combined professional experience as an attorney and CEO. In addition to the above areas of law, Mr. Florestal practices business, contract, nonprofit, elder, and guardianship laws. Mr. Florestal is a graduate of Brooklyn College and Fordham University School of Law and is admitted to the Bar of the State of New York, United States Tax Court, and the United States Eastern and Southern District Courts. Marcel's unique combination of legal and tax skills have been a strong asset to many of his clients. These skills have been tested in handling many high-profile clients, cases including United States Eastern District Court Judge Sterling Johnson, the Reverend Al Sharpton, National Basketball Association players Ricky Davis of the Miami Heat and Kenny Thomas of the Sacramento Kings, National Football League players Leonard Marshall of the New York Giants, and Corey Lochi of the Buffalo Bills, Major League Baseball CFO Jonathan Mariner, and various others, helping them to obtain correct resolution for their case. Much of Mr. Florestal's strengths comes from his community service experience. He is the former general counsel to the 100 Black Men of New York Incorporated, current board member of the New York State Academy of Trial Attorneys, a district leader in Westchester County, a member of Hispanic Democrats of Westchester County, and Black Democrats of the Westchester County, where he supports judges, elected officials, and political aspirants running for public office. Matters of Faith family, would you welcome with me tonight my guest, my friend, my brother from another mother, attorney Marcel Florestal. Okay, I
Good
guess that
evening.
got you in there right. Good evening, my brother. How are you?
Good evening, Reverend. Now, for full disclosure, I should say that the picture that you have posted is about 20 years old, and I think my hairline has receded about 20 years worth of
Oh, don't
food.
worry about it.
So
Don't worry
it's
about
a
it. Hey, do me
20-year-old
a favor.
picture. Yeah.
Lower your camera just a little bit because I can only see your nose up.
Okay.
There you go. Now you're in there.
Absolutely.
There you
Absolutely.
go.
Yeah. It's a 20-year-old picture you got there. I guess I should have sent you a more recent one.
Well,
We
you know
all
what
look good
happens.
20 years
What
ago.
happens is this, man. Actually, I can say this, and I really mean it because I feel the same way. Black don't crack. It's good. You
There you
still look
go.
good.
There you go.
You
Yeah.
still look good. You still in there.
So I have it shaved off more or less, much more so than I used to back in the day. So having made that
Hey, that's
confession,
fine. That's fine. Hey, I'm glad that you came. Hey,
absolutely.
listen. Let me do this. Let me ask you this question, okay?
Sure.
I've read your bio. People know who you are. They know kind of like what you do. But tell us something about you,
Yes.
Marcel, that we don't know and we really should know.
Okay. Although I'm an attorney, I don't have as much confidence in our legal system as most would think. And I
Hmm.
mean that with respect to both the civil and the criminal justice system. Meaning, I deal with a lot of judges. So I know how judges work. I know, obviously, I'm speaking generally. I
Right.
know how
Right.
judges work. I know how judges think. And I think a lot of us put our faith in these men and women wearing the black robes, thinking that, well, if they decreed that, or if they found that person, guilty or innocent, then that must be right.
Hmm.
That's not always the case. So that's something that a lot of people don't know about me. That although I'm a lawyer, I don't have as much confidence in our legal system as most people would think.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting because I would think that, um, well, let me put it this way. How do you deal with that without having that confidence working in that arena on a regular basis? What do you do to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Help your clients to feel confident in the judgment that they'll get from the judicial system.
Well, I'll answer it another way, and it was you sort of alluded to that in the first part of your question. I don't know how it is. I don't know how it is I don't know how to make my clients confident about the legal system. Well, first of all, I would think that not a lot of them are as skeptical as I am. That's number one. Number
Okay.
two, with respect to how I can kind of ameliorate that problem, and we do have a problem. We have a problem. I believe that, hey, some judges are clearly qualified and good, and they know what they're doing, but there are a lot of bad judges out there too. Okay, there are a lot of
Hmm.
bad judges out there too. So, and it's referenced in my bio. I sit on this committee in Westchester County, where I reside. My office is in Manhattan, but I reside in Westchester County. So I sit on this committee in Westchester County that it's called the Judicial Screening Committee. So if somebody is running for a judicial seat at the state level, state supreme, civil, what have you, they would come before my committee and we get to interview them and basically either anoint them or vote against them. Okay,
Gotcha.
so I'm in the front lines and I get to see who wears or who will wear the black robe. So that's how I kind of play the buffer between bad judges and the public, if that
I
makes
really
sense.
like that. I really like that. So you've taken a position, and I don't mean this as like a stance, but you've taken or like I mean it as a stance, not as a position like you've taken a job, but you've taken this position that I'm going to be proactive in making sure, as best of my ability,
Mhm.
that the persons who sit behind that bench are people who really should be behind that bench, that they can
Absolutely.
dispense the kind of justice that people, not just people of color, but people need.
Absolutely. And who better to make that decision than a lawyer, an attorney
Mm,
who understands, quote unquote, uh, what it means to dispense out justice, okay?
mhm.
Either at the criminal justice
Right, right.
level or at the civil justice level. Now, and I'm speaking strictly from the state level because as you and your listeners may know, when it comes to federal judges, they are appointed and it's lifetime appointments. Okay, so
Right.
the president basically appoints. They get anointed by the Senate, and
You're buffering for some reason or another.
am I?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I'm feeling it. I'm hearing the buffering, but you know what? Let me take my headset off because sometimes I think it does it too. I'm
Okay,
gonna
this is
go
what I'm
back to
going to
my
do.
regular.
Sometimes the connection.
Yeah.
No,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, I just changed Wi-Fi connection, so this should be better.
Okay.
Is that any better?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Perfect. Can you see me too?
I can see you too.
Perfect. I just changed Wi-Fi connection, so this should be better. Okay, so where did you lose me?
Well, no, you were talking about who better to do
Yeah.
that than an attorney
Okay.
who understands the system, who's been in it and knows what they're looking for.
Exactly, exactly. An attorney who's in the system, who understands the system, who understands case law, who better to be able to judge a judge's performance than an attorney who understands how the system works. So that's what I do, and I think it's important because our legal system plays a very important role in our everyday lives. Uh, from the most minor thing that might affect either one of us at any point in time, at any station in life, right? In which you go before a judge for a civil matter, you're suing somebody in small claims. If you're a renter, you're suing somebody landlord tenant. If you're getting divorced, your case is before a family court judge to the very highest,
Mhm,
obviously, in
mhm.
our land, the Supreme Court of the United States. So uh, the judicial system affects our lives at all levels. And I think it's important that the people who wear the black robes are people who are worthy. And so that's something that is very, very important to me. I cannot underestimate how seriously I take that.
Well, I can tell that. I mean, I've known you now for about 6 years. I think it's 6 years. I think I met you in 2016.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can mark that date because it's the year that I ran for public office, and I met you
Oh, yes, I
during
remember
that
that.
process. So
Yes,
I
yeah.
know it's easy for me to mark out how long I've
Mhm.
known you. You stand in a place that's easily identifiable in my life, and,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
you're quite helpful to me as well. So that was a great thing. But I'm glad that you did
I
that.
appreciate
But
it.
I'm really intrigued because you know, I've been trying to get you back on the show for a while, and this is a great opportunity for me to have you
Miles, what
back
are you
on.
doing?
Um, yeah, so I know you're still there. You took the picture off a moment, but that's
Yeah,
okay.
hold on one sec.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
So
speak. You can speak. Yeah, I'm listening, Lauren.
yeah, okay. All right, very good. So what I'm really intrigued with is how you are using those skills, talents, and abilities that you've acquired and that you were gifted with to make life better for people across the board. And in your instance, in your particular situation, you're not a criminal attorney. You're not necessarily a civil attorney. You work with estates and you work with the people and their businesses and things of that nature, which is a little different because you don't necessarily, you said the high profile cases in your bio, but the high profile cases that we normally attribute to attorneys are those that deal with criminal law, and you don't do that. That's
No,
not
no,
your area of concentration.
no. You're right, Lauren. You and I, we've been knowing each other for a while. Um, now my practice. You still there? Okay.
I'm here.
Sometimes you were so stationary, I couldn't
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
if you
yeah, yeah.
froze. I'm like,
Yeah, I get.
yeah. Yeah, my practice area is much broader than just trust and estates and tax and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
I'll tell you a little bit something about my practice areas. I actually started the whole trust and estates work not even as a lawyer, but more as a CPA. I used to be a CPA before I became a lawyer. Now I've been a lawyer now well over 2 decades, though.
Mm,
But I started out as a CPA, tax CPA, and so on and so
mhm,
forth. And so tax is something that I could speak that language. I could speak that language in my sleep. And then I became a lawyer, like I said, well over 2 decades now.
mhm,
And so obviously, being that I understood taxation and how tax worked, I went into the tax field and I broadened out. I broadened out into tax and estates, trust and estates, because it had a heavy tax component in it. When people die, depending on how large your estate is, sometimes there is a tax component to it.
mhm,
Okay. And obviously, when people have issues, controversial issues with the IRS, New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, and so on and so forth, they would come before me and I would help them. So we would do everything from dealing with a client who needs a basic will, healthcare proxy, a living will, trust, and so on and so forth. And if somebody has tax issues, like I said before, the IRS, you would litigate that too in tax court, even federal court, and so on and so forth. There came a point in time in which, I'll be honest, I didn't feel as fulfilled as I knew I could have. I didn't feel as fulfilled as I wanted to be with a law degree. I knew that I wanted to be that attorney that you see on TV who, at least from my standpoint, made a difference. And I just did not feel that just uh, the financial part, dealing with that part of the law, was as fulfilling to me.
mm,
So I started, well, pushing 10 years now, I guess. Well, more like 7 years, but almost 10 years. So my firm, we started representing clients in employment discrimination civil rights, and stuff of that nature. So we are actually a lot of what we do, in addition to the trust and estates and probate work, a lot of what we do deals with civil rights,
Hmm.
employment discrimination. So to your point, how do I affect or uh, affect the kind of changes that you're alluding to? It's through those avenues, and
Hmm.
that's where I get to see these judges make decisions that really impact somebody's life. Like if somebody sues for some sort of discrimination, some sort of racial, gender, sexual orientation discrimination, and they don't get a fair shake. So that's where I really get to see that. Now, again, let me just, and I'll let you respond after I just say this. I don't want to come off as a judge basher. Okay, I don't want for your listeners to think that this guy is bashing judges, because that's not the case at all. What is the case is, like I said, I'm in the front line, so I have a bird's eye view. At times, I see that the our legal system, Mother Justice, is not always blind as it should be.
I like that because by the way, I never felt that you were judge bashing, not at all. But I think that you're giving people who don't um, stand before the bar of justice to litigate or to defend anybody. He sees it from a completely different perspective. And then the transparency that you're sharing with us, I think is refreshing because a lot of people, they may feel that they're not getting a fair shake, but everybody seems to in the law field seems to think that you are, right? That there's blind justice
Absolutely.
in getting it. But now you're
Yeah,
sharing with us that that's not always the case. And so I
yeah.
guess it behooves us as ordinary people without the law background to make sure that we're finding someone that if we need representation in any area of law, that we find
Mhm,
someone who can best represent our perspective because they know who we are and how we feel when we're not given proper justice.
mhm. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I mean, what was that? What was that? That movie that was out just a few years ago? Was it Just Us? With Michael Jordan, not the ball player.
Mhm.
The actor. He was
Michael B. Jordan.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that movie that he was in talked about with Jamie Foxx was playing.
Okay, I did not see that movie. It
Oh
was
my God,
about
great
the
movie.
legal
Oh my
system.
God, you
Okay.
need to see that. It's an awesome movie, awesome.
Okay.
Because he was literally fighting against the system to get justice for this person who was wrongly convicted of murder
Hmm.
and was on
Yeah.
death row.
Oh wow. I
And,
I
and
I
he was
I
able to
gotta
do
see
it.
it.
But
Hmm.
he had, I mean, the work that he had to put in because the people didn't want to support him in his position. And of course, he had to do it mostly by himself. And he had someone, and this was in the, segregated America.
Hmm.
So it was really difficult to do it back then, much
Okay.
more so than now. I mean, now you can find someone who is of your same nationality or
Hmm.
background, or understand what it's like to, drive while black, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And so you can
Absolutely.
find someone who can represent, but back then you couldn't. So
Okay.
I'm really glad to hear this because this is for me refreshing. And when I think about the article that was written, in terms of a call for a purpose. Well, you exemplify that, man. Matter of fact, you personify that because from a CPA, and of course, I do financial planning, I do financial work and that kind of thing, and we kind of didn't connect on that level, but we connected after a while on that same level. And
Hmm.
so the interesting thing for me is that the purpose for which you are called. And when you said that you became dissatisfied and you weren't fulfilled, and the scripture that I chose said, tell Archippus, you know, to keep doing what he's doing so he can fulfill his ministry. And
Hmm.
sometimes that means branching out, stepping up, going in a different direction because it's not being fulfilled.
Hmm.
But in order to fulfill the ministry that you've been given, I'm using theological terminology here, but in order to feel the purpose that you were created to, you need to be willing to expand your territory, go in a different direction, if that's what's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
You exemplify.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that and am a firm believer of that. Because it's interesting. I remember about 10 years ago, right? I'm 54 now, so you estimate about actually maybe a little before 10 years ago, maybe when I was 40, about 40 or so, right? I remember being with a group of people. I remember one person in the party. Yeah, they were all professionals. I vaguely remember one was in the financial industry, one was a doctor, one was I forget what they were, but they were all established people. I remember one of them made a comment that I so disagreed with. She was a lady. She was in the fashion industry, and she got up, and it was a group, like a, I guess, support group, social group, networking group, whatever you want to call it. She said, "Oh, we're all in our 40s now, and pretty much, we've made more or less all the money we're gonna make."
Mm.
Okay, to me, that suggested like, yeah, at least in her view, she hit that ceiling. Like life has a ceiling. Like, yeah, you're never gonna go beyond. If you're a doctor and you want to be an engineer, the train has left the station.
Mm.
And I've never believed that. To your point, and the biblical passage that you chose, I don't think there's any limits, right? I don't believe there's any limits. I don't believe that your best life can't be tomorrow. I don't, regardless of where you are, at what station you are in life now. I believe if you want something, you can go out and get it. Now the question is, do you believe it? So I never forgot that that lady thought that because all of them were established,
Mm.
40 something years of age,
Mm.
pretty much that was it for them. That's about as much as they're gonna make in this lifetime. They'll
Wow.
get their bonus, and I guess after a couple of years, they'll get their gold watch, pat in the back, see you, wouldn't want to be it. This new person's gonna take over for you. I don't believe that that's what life was meant to be, and I don't believe that that's how life should be. I don't care how old you are. If you want something, if you want a change of career, or anything for that matter. It's up to you to say, listen, I've hit that glass ceiling, and I'm not going to make a nickel more than I'm making now, other than, your statutory incremental raises,
Mm.
3% a year. That's all I'm going to make. I've never believed that. I don't believe that. And I hope at least some of your listeners agree with me with respect to that.
Well, whether they do or not, I do. And I was reading something today, and it said, stop chasing the money,
Hmm.
start chasing the passion.
There you go.
Because what happens is that, I mean, look, I have retooled myself at least a gazillion times in my life.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not one to sit back and say, okay, that's it. If it was about the money, then I would have stayed in the financial services industry, and that was all that I would ever do, and just make
Mhm.
money. That would be it. But the Lord called me into ministry, and He didn't call me when I was 20 years old, nor
Hmm.
25 years old, nor 30 years old. Called me older than that, when I was old beyond that. And I have retooled myself over and over again. And the reason that, I think that I'm being retooled and repurposed is because there's more territory that I'm supposed to cover. But it's
Hmm.
all a part of the purpose and the plan. And those things that I've done are not to brag and boast about. They are there to fuel me to go further. To say, look,
Hmm.
I've used that. That's your training session. You've been trained to do this. So when you get where you're going, you're prepared. Now, I remember I read a book regularly over and over and over again. I probably read it every 4 or 5 years just to remind myself. It's called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And he talks
Yeah, yeah,
about
I
these
read that.
principles, right? Most people, if
Mhm.
anyone's ever read a motivational book or some book on self-actualization, Think and Grow Rich is probably at the top of the list. It's been there forever. And in this book,
Mhm.
he says that, he talks about a mind, right? What the mind can conceive and believe it will achieve, right? Or it can achieve. I say
Mhm.
it will achieve. But he talks about
Mhm.
a place in your mind where you really have a mastermind and you're thinking thoughts that you haven't thought before,
Mhm.
doing things that you haven't done before. And he said that
Mhm.
normally, that sixth sense is what he calls it, doesn't come to you. Some people until they're well into their 60s and even their 70s.
Yeah, I
They
remember that.
don't get, because all the other stuff is just coming together. If I thought at the age of 40 or 45 that it was done, oh my God. I
Mhm.
think I think that those are some of the problems that we're having in our society now, because our young people think that they're not going to get old. That 30 is all I'm if I make it to 30, I'm lucky. And so
Yeah.
they're dying and they're taking all of these gifts, talents, and skills to the graveyard, to the cemetery, where they die with them.
Mhm.
Listen. I want to be able to do stuff when I'm 95 and 100 years old,
Mhm.
doing something new,
Yeah.
learning something different,
Mhm.
making something happen. I mean, come on. Wait, do you still see that woman? I'm just kind of curious. You ever see her again?
Mhm. Oh, no, no, I don't. No, 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 I don't. But I'll tell you this. Unfortunately, a lot of people think like that. She was just an example of how a lot of people think. And quite frankly, I believe that society sort of conditions people to think that way if you
It
really
does.
think
It
about it,
does.
right?
It does. Absolutely.
Just kind of keep people in your place. As long as you stay in your place, we know exactly how to categorize you. You're not going to rock the boat, as
Right.
opposed to, you think you could split the atom. Think you can split the atom. I mean, not to veer off topic too much, um, but sometimes I think about the amount of wealth in this on this planet. If you think about the amount of wealth in this planet, you gotta ask yourself, man, why is it that there's anybody who's hungry? Why is it that there's
Mm,
anybody who's in debt? Can you imagine if you let's say you had $1 million debt, okay? What would it cost Jeff Bezos or what's his name, the Facebook guy,
oh, Mark
Mark
Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg? Yeah, yeah. You pick up the phone. Hey, Mark. This is Lauren. I'm $1 million in debt. Can you Zell me $1 million? $1 million to Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg is like you asking me for
Right.
$10.
Right. If
These
that.
people know
If
if
that.
that
If
exactly
that.
exactly. These people don't. You can't take it with you, and that's why a lot of them have pledged to give it all away
Right. Right.
before they pass away. So you ask yourself, man, one man controls so much of the world's wealth. Then why is it that we have poverty? We have people who don't eat. We have this. We have so much malnutrition, you name it. People are dying in Asia, in the motherland, from stuff that's been eradicated in this country forever, like like dengue fever, some obscure, mosquito-driven disease like that, where all you need is like a
Malaria.
net,
Yep.
exact malaria, something like that, because we're all sort of programmed to kind of stay in your lane. You're a billionaire, okay, so you shouldn't really mess with Lauren because he's not a billionaire. So, why not? Why can't you pick up the phone and call Bezos or Zuckerberg? Why can't they interact with you? Why must you have debt when they have so much?
Hmm. Hmm.
Hey, man, call me a communist, but that's not what I'm espousing. I'm not
Not
espousing
communism,
communism.
man. It's humanism. When you think humanistically, when you think about what can be done for humanity, That's what makes the difference. You absolutely, today, Jeff Bezos, I think I saw in the news this morning, gave Dolly Parton, who doesn't need any money,
Yeah, I was gonna say she needs
gave
money.
her $100 million with
For
no
what?
strings attached.
For what?
I don't know,
Oh my God.
but with no strings attached. And
I
then he
can
made
use
an
that
announcement
million.
today, which I saw in the
100
newspaper,
million. Yeah.
as you just said. He said he's going to give all of his money away.
Yeah. Hey, I'll give him my number. Okay.
Yep.
He should feel free to transfer to Zell me some of those millions. And I'll do likewise.
And I would be a blessing throughout the entire
There you go.
community. Everywhere that I go, everywhere my
There you
people
go.
tried, there will be blessings, there will be flowers that grow, there would be trees that bloom, there would be waters that flow, because that's what I would do. If I had it, I would give it, because
So,
and that's an interesting concept.
so Lauren, I'm sorry, just to kind of circle us back, in case your listeners are wondering, why is he bringing that up? The reason I'm bringing that up is it goes along with what I said before, how
Mhm.
we all just kind of stick to our lane, right? We
Yeah,
all just kind of,
yeah,
all right, that's
yeah,
your lane, brother. Your
yeah.
lane is not to eradicate world hunger or nothing.
Right.
You're a billionaire, do what billionaires do. Can you imagine if all billionaires just wanted to diverge from the norm? Oh, I think I'm gonna give Marcel $1 million just because. I think Oprah did something like that, right? To my recollection, didn't Oprah give her friend, the one who's in CBS now,
Gail.
Gail $1 million because she wanted Gail to be a millionaire?
Yep. Yep.
I think Oprah did that just because. Can
Right.
you imagine if everybody was like, I
Right.
think I'm gonna give Lauren $1 million
Right.
just because.
Just because. Just
I
because.
think I'm gonna transfer $1 million to every person on every continent just to eradicate world hunger. No, nobody does that because we all were taught to kind of stay in your lane.
Mm.
That's how that's
That's
what
an
makes the world go
interesting
round.
concept. Stay in your lane, and not to the extent,
Don't
we
rock the
say that
boat.
a lot in our churches. We say a lot, but stay in your lane. Um, when you're talking about the disposition of gifts, talents, and skills and resources,
Yeah,
stay in
stay
your
in your
lane.
lane.
Right?
Mhm.
Don't give don't give your stuff to people who are less than you are, whatever that may mean.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
that may mean.
Yeah.
And people adhere to that.
Yeah.
They go along with people. We tend to go along with those kind of ideologies.
Absolutely. And if you think about what Jesus Christ did exactly what I'm espousing, right? Jesus Christ did not have billions of dollars, but he had abilities, right?
Right.
He had abilities. So what did he do? He went around dispensing his gifts, his miracles to people. That's what he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the leper, to the blind man, to the what's another word for a woman of the night?
The woman, the
Yeah,
prostitute.
yeah, exactly. You know what I'm talking about. So he went around indiscriminately bestowing upon them gifts. I'm sorry, that's my son back
Oh,
there.
I see him. I see him.
He's,
I see him.
yeah, I'm at my home office, but he doesn't care. He's just yeah. So that's what he went around doing. What I'm sort of suggesting, can you imagine Jeff Bezos as Jesus Christ,
Mm,
or Mark Zuckerberg as Jesus
mm.
Christ, but the financial Jesus Christ.
Right. Right. I mean, they can do so much.
So much.
It's interesting. In my sermon yesterday, and I preached about this topic, and I talked about that your God-given ministry, the purpose for which you have, it was given to you as a gift by God, and because of it, and this is what I'm sort of interpreting this to mean that you have become sort of a designated watch person, a watchman or watchwoman, who now is responsible for sounding the alarm when things are wrong and doing something about those things that you can do something about. And the Bible gives a wonderful illustration in the Old Testament about the watchman who's on the tower, who fails to sound the alarm.
Mhm.
It talks about the blood of the people is on your hands
Mhm.
because you didn't sound the alarm. So if you took that to another, if you took it to another level and you said, okay, not just sounding the alarm, but when you can do something about it and you do nothing,
Mhm.
the blood of the people on your hands,
Mhm.
the blood of the people on your hands. Because if you, to whom much is given, this is
Mhm.
biblical, to whom much is given, much is required. You're giving these gifts, these talents, these skills, these abilities, so that you can be a blessing, not just to those in your circle. Because I like the way the Bible talks about it. It says, if you give to those who can give it back to you, what good is it? Well, what good is that?
Mhm.
Give it to somebody who can give it right back to you. All you're doing is swapping back and forth. You're not
Mhm.
making a difference.
Mhm.
But when you give to someone who cannot give it back, who cannot repay you, now you're making a profound difference in the lives of those individuals. You talked about some of the miracles. I recall that there was a time, read about in the book, I think it's Matthew or
Mhm.
Luke. There are three friends, right? And they bring their fourth friend who's an invalid. And Jesus is teaching in a house.
Mhm.
And they open the ceiling of the house, the roof of the house, they tear it open and they lower their friend down where Jesus is.
Mhm.
So their faith in who Jesus is made them not only to lower the friend, but to break the ceiling open to do that. And
Mhm.
they lower him, and Jesus looks at him, and Jesus heals this man. Now, they didn't have the ability to heal him,
Mhm.
but they had the ability to take him. They presented him to Christ in order for him to be healed.
Mhm.
Um, if you have the ability and you don't use it, then their friend would remain crippled for the rest of his life.
Mhm.
They didn't have the resources, but they had the strength to go. If you
Mhm.
have I don't care what the gift is. I don't care if you have the Jesus healing power or not, but if you have the strength to take your friend to where the gift is, take your friend to where the gift is.
Mhm.
Do what you can do with what you've been given. You don't have
Mhm.
to do Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg kinds of things because you can't.
Mhm.
But you can align yourself. You can align yourself. You can align yourself with organizations and institutions that do this kind of stuff, and you can use the little things that you have and magnify them and grow them and merge them with the resources of the others, and then you can do miraculous things yourself.
Mhm.
See, that's what I like about about the idea of fulfilling your purpose, doing everything. Now that means that you go above and beyond, like you did. Being a CPA for some would have been more than enough. Hey, I'm a CPA. That's it. Hey, I'm good. But
Mhm.
that was not fulfilling. And you used the
Mhm.
word fulfilling. And I loved it because it says to me that there was more that you had in you that needed to come out,
Mhm.
and it couldn't come out even though you were at quote unquote the top of the financial game with the CPA degree.
Mhm.
There was more in you that needed to come out, and the way it came out was in the profession of the practice of law, merging these two fields together.
Uh, Absolutely, absolutely. And I just wanted to say, just as an aside, when you said to whom much is given, much
Required.
is expect, much is required.
Mhm.
I don't know what the demographics of your listeners are, but I'm sure they probably are thinking, "Oh, that's a quote from Spider-Man," because I think both Gen Zers, that's where they sort of like reference that quote from when Uncle Ben says to
Right,
Peter Parker, to
right.
but they don't know that statement has its roots, has biblical roots.
Absolutely.
Marvel
Absolutely.
took it from the Bible. So it dawned on me that a lot of Gen Zers are probably thinking you're quoting Uncle Ben from Spider-Man.
Right,
That's
exactly.
when
Especially with Wakanda Forever out, breaking all the financial records in the world. But I get it, and I like that because I think his uncles, and I'm a Spider-Man fan from the time I was
yeah,
a kid. And Uncle Ben said something like great power brings about
requires
great
great
responsibility.
responsibility. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking, but more or less,
But it's the
it
same
means the
thing. It's
same
the
thing.
same
Yeah,
thing.
same
So,
principle.
and see the interesting thing, I'm glad you mentioned it. I'll just go ahead and say this for the benefit of those who are watching, just to understand. Listen, I at one point in my life, I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to be very, very successful. And my library was just full of motivational books, right? I mean, just all kinds of, and I read everything. I listened to the Brian Tracy's. I listened to, all of these. I wanted to be there, and I positioned myself to do that. At a very early age, I was doing very well for myself. And then when I got this quote unquote urge, this tug, this pull to do ministry, to really do ministry in a real serious sense, and I began to read the Bible in earnest, I found out that all those motivational books plagiarized the Bible all over the place. They was pulling stuff out of there left and right. It's all in
Yeah,
there. And that's the thing that blew me away. I was like, oh my God, if I had known that all of this was in that, I would have been in that and wouldn't have ever had to borrow with those things over there. Because it's interesting, right? Some of the things that we're searching so hard for is right in front of our faces and we miss it.
absolutely.
Miss it.
Absolutely. Now, I'd like to say this, Lauren. I really respect guys like you. Um, I know we've been referring to Mark Zuckerberg, so I guess we got to give him his props too for creating the Facebook platform. But guys like you who are making their success, possibly you might say, and hope you don't take offense to this, but the non-conventional way, right? Creating a platform for themselves. Obviously your show's not on ABC, CBS, NBC, or any of the major networks, but it's nonetheless, you manage to produce, direct, and create something and create a platform that transmits to various people in theory or all around the country and all around the world, right? To the extent that the internet's not blocked like some places in China and some other countries that curb your freedom of speech and freedom of expression. So I really respect guys like you who, like I said, are not affiliated with the NBCs or the major networks, but they manage to, um, uh, create a platform for themselves to sort of branch out and reach people without the help of the major networks. And hey, with the blessings of God, hey, you could take this. I think sky's the limit as to where you can go with your radio and your internet program.
Well, I thank you for that. It's interesting for me because, um, I used to do radio, and I always thought that I would be a radio personality. That's what I wanted to do. Um, the Lord took me in a different direction, and I was in sales and marketing, and I saw that as a stepping stone to do radio and television, if you will. But I never wanted to be an actor or just a DJ that played music. Although I was a DJ, I did that. I was a DJ, played music. But I always wanted to say something that made sense, that helped people. I wasn't quite sure what that was, but I wanted to do that. And so, I like writing. I've always liked writing. When I was in high school, I wrote. I was the editor of the sports section. I went to college. I wrote. I wrote for the newsletter. I wrote. I like writing. I had a job when I was the director of public relations, and I created a newsletter for them, and I wrote. And I like writing, but I found myself at a place that I wasn't writing, and I wasn't speaking, and I was praying about that. And one of my friends called me one day. He said, "Listen, Lauren, I just became editor of an online newspaper. I'd like you to write a column for me." I was like, "Really, Lord? I mean, I just talked to you about that. Is that true?" He said. So I said, "Well, okay." And I was saying to myself, but I don't really want to work. I mean, I want to write a column, but I don't want to work. Writing a column is like writing a paper every week. That's crazy. I'm out of school. I don't want to do that. But I thought about it. I prayed about it. And the Lord says, do it. And so I did it the first time, and I wrote one column. I said, we'll do it every month. The first article I wrote got such a response. He said, you got to do it more frequently. So I said, okay, I'll do it every week. Well, that was like 8 years ago.
Hmm.
And I was saying, look, Lord, I want to get back into, into radio. And lo and behold, some of you have heard this before. In Florida, visiting with one of my wife's cousins who now has gone on to be with the Lord. She passed away earlier this year.
Condolences.
It's a wonderful lady. And she says, I manage a radio station. Like, what? I manage a radio station. Well, get out of here. What do you do? So she told me, and I'm like, Lord, that's amazing. So about a month after I started writing the column, I visited with her on her show. And I did it about 4 or 5 times. And she said, you need to have your own show. That's how Matters of Faith came about being. First in the writing and then in the production. The individual who was sponsoring the radio, they lost their contract with the radio. And you remember that because the last time you were on, we were not on visually.
Yes, it was radio.
It was radio. And so in the process of doing that, one Monday evening, I couldn't get onto the board. I was at a hotel down in South Carolina that had terrible internet reception. Couldn't get on the board. So one of my regular callers said, well, why don't you do a Facebook Live broadcast? So I've never done that before. She said, why don't you try it? And I did. That night, I had over 700 people watching that night. I'd never done it before. I was like, I'll never stop doing this because it's amazing. And that's how it started.
Yeah.
And of course, this thing called Zoom came up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Zoom allows me to do this, right? Have a guest on like you, we're talking and we can interface. And then I'll get the people to contribute because they can write their comments on the Facebook page, which is what they're doing. So let me share with you, because this is new for you. This is a new format for you. So let me tell you how this second half works. It's almost 9 o'clock. So at the top of the hour, I will go back. I will recognize my sponsors and advertisers. And I'll also read the article again and ask that challenge question. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to look and see what those who are viewing have written. And we're going to bring them into our conversation by their comments. They can't talk with us, but they can put their comments in. And guys and ladies, this is the question I want you to consider. I really want you to address this question. In what ways are you using your God-given talents and abilities in your God-given ministry to fulfill your God-given purpose? That's the question. So as you think about that, I want you to hear the announcements, communications, and I'll read the article again, and I will ask the question one more time, and then we will be in our second half, and we will close out the show that way. So I'm going to disappear for a moment. I'm going to do that. I'm going to disappear. And you can do whatever you want to do. You can, there you go. And then what we'll do is I'm going to share my screen again, and then we will get started, and I'll recognize my sponsors and advertisers, and then we'll be back shortly.
Okay.
All right. Are the trustees in your house of worship knowledgeable of all of their fiduciary responsibilities? Are the disciples of your house of worship aware of the Lord's biblical economic strategies? Are you planning to renovate, build, refinance, or develop your church property? Well, the JLR company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, is here to help you. Give us a call at 718-328-8096. That's 718-328-8096. Or visit our website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. That's www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. At the JLR Company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, it's not about the castle, it's about the kingdom. Get your copy of Matters of Faith, the book. You can use the Cash App, $ Matters of Faith. The book is $22.80, which covers shipping and handling. Or you can send a check or money order to the JLR Company, Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. That's Post Office Box 301, New York, New York 10035. You can also get the book as an ebook. Just go to www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. That's www.smashwords.com facebook.com/books/view/993-177. There is a 50% discount if you act now. Check out the Eat Okra app for black owned restaurants all over the nation. Yes, get the Eat Okra app. Now, please subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and share the Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Please, ma'am, please, sir, more than ever, we need to make sure that we are vaccinated. Anyone 5 years of age and above are eligible, and even those under 5 can be vaccinated, and the vaccines are free. If you don't do it for yourself, do it for someone that you love. You know I love you, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it, so get used to it. Oh, and get vaccinated. Love Thy Neighbor Incorporated project is preparing for their annual Back to School drive. They are collecting backpacks, book bags, lunch boxes, pencils, erasers, sharpeners, crayons, coloring books, calculators, socks, shoes, sneakers, and snacks. For shipping and giving instructions, follow them on their Facebook page, love_thy_neighbor_project. That's love_thy_neighbor_project, or just simply visit their website, www.lovethyneighbor7.org. That's www.lovethyneighbor7.org. Every gift makes a difference in the lives of our children. www.lovethyneighbor7.org. Colossians chapter 4, verse 17 from the New King James Version. And say to Archippus, take heed to the ministry which you have received in the Lord, that you may fulfill it. Called for a purpose. There's an old saying that there is a purpose for everything, and everything has a purpose. This idiom points to everything as having a use and a reason for being. It may not be the reasons you think, but everything has a cause for being. How would you react if you suddenly discovered that your cognitive abilities were suddenly limitless, that your perception, memory, judgment, and reasoning were suddenly and remarkably precise? If you instantaneously had the ability to calculate any mathematical equation accurately and effortlessly, if you could remember anything you heard or saw word for word and exact detail, if suddenly you realized that you knew the cure to every form of cancer, the cure for AIDS, COVID-19, the solution to violence, and the formula for world peace, how would you react if you discovered that you could play any song on any instrument after hearing it only once, or could speak and understand any language without ever taking a course? Would you agree that you were a person of purpose? I am exaggerating to make a point. Some of us have talents, skills, abilities, and gifts that rival or even surpass those that I've mentioned. The problem is that we often do not discover them and end up taking those talents, skills, and abilities and gifts to our graves. We never discover their purpose, or we take their purpose for granted and never use them at their full potential. Everything that we are engaged in, every work, every relationship, every endeavor, has a purpose that can potentially and hopefully positively affect the lives of everyone who we encounter. In the text, Paul is writing to Archippus to encourage him to be steadfast and to fulfill or complete his ministry. We do not know what his ministry was, but we do know that it was God-given. Archippus could be any of us. The ministry could have been given to any of us. Paul's encouragements could have been directed to any of us, because each of us were called and given a ministry or a work for a particular purpose. Our greatest challenge is to discover that purpose so that we don't take our ministry with us to our graves. Be blessed. So here is my question tonight. In what ways are you using your God-given talents, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose? Let me ask it again. In what ways are you using your God-given talents, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose? what I'm saying. I really want to, I want to challenge you to think about this question. And I really want you to start writing in your answers. If you haven't done so already, please start doing it right away. I need to, I'm looking for, I can't find my, there we go. Hold on for a second. I couldn't find it. So here we go. Let me put my picture back up on the screen so you can see me. There we go. And then I'll stop my share so that you can actually see what's going on the screen. Now we're back. And I just want you to think about that question for a moment. In what ways are you using your God-given talent, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose? Now, I really want you to address that question because that's the question that's on the table tonight. When you think about the article talks about this gentleman by name of Archippus. We don't know who he is. He's anonymous. The only thing we know about him is what Paul said about him in this book called Philemon. He called him a fellow soldier. That's all we know about Archippus. But apparently, he had a gift that came from God, and he was encouraged by Paul to fulfill that gift, his ministry. So every one of us has something that was given to us, all of us. So the question becomes, how do we get it out of us? And my guest tonight has already shared with us how dissatisfied and unfulfilled he was, even though he was a CPA, and began to look at retooling himself so that he could go into the law profession to make sure that he could right wrongs that he saw in the profession with those who were sitting on the bench so that they would be able to govern and judge righteously, justly. And so he also serves in a number of different ways to help make that happen. One of them is on that judicial committee that he sits on in Westchester County, interviewing those who are interested in coming into want to sit on the bench, either giving them their blessings or looking at them and saying, this ain't for you. So my guest tonight, my friend, my good brother, my real good brother. I really love this man. He's a great guy. Marcel Florestal. He is here with us tonight, and I don't want to take anything away from him. I want him to join in and just jump in any way he wants to. But let me do two things before I bring him in. I want to look at a couple of remarks that were made earlier on. Daryl said something that was interesting. Daryl said we were talking about money, chasing the money. Remember you said that, Marcel? He said there is a fear in being about the money. It makes it too easy to pursue and satisfy the lusts of the flesh and forget about bearing the fruit of the Spirit. The scripture says, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. Being about the money becomes a distraction from the purpose of God. And then we were talking about the things that the Lord has planned for you. And Anna said, God knows the plans he has for you. Biblically speaking, he does. And then Louise said something I thought was interesting. She says, we have to believe, and it was something that you had said earlier, Marcel. She said, we have to believe in ourselves. Without a personal belief in what you've been called to do and what you've been gifted, is impossible for you to fulfill your purpose and your calling. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Marcel. You can jump in any way you like. You can comment on any of those things that I've just said, and I'm going to challenge my viewers to start addressing that question. In what ways are you? This is personal now. This is you. How are you fulfilling your God-given talents, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back, Reverend. I think one of your listeners, well, I think all of them had hit the nail on the head, but one in particular I'd like to address is the one who said you've got to believe. I think belief is key. I think and that is probably your biggest obstacle, belief or lack thereof. Now, going back to the episode that I told you about, where when I was with that group, that networking group, when one of members
Mhm.
thought that she had made as, or rather, I think she sort of suggested us, the group, pretty much we're in our
Right, right.
40s, so pretty much that's about as much as you're gonna make. You're not gonna be Jeff Bezos anytime soon. Well, I beg to differ. I thought, hey, listen, if I wanted to be Jeff Bezos a la Marcel, I think I can be a Jeff
Mhm.
Bezos a la Marcel. That's not my drive. Maybe a junior Jeff Bezos. However, I define that. Um, but yeah, I think to your listener's point, see, she didn't believe that she can go beyond a
Right,
certain point,
right.
and that tells it all, right? That tells it
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
She did not believe, but to me, as soon as I heard that, I was just so blown away.
Mm,
First of all, now that I'm trying to recollect, I think one of the things that offended me was the fact that she said, because now I think I'm recalling clearer now. I don't think I was 40 yet. I think I was 39.
mm.
I was thinking, I'm like,
Oh, okay.
maybe you guys are 40. I'm not 40 yet. See, because I'm very tall, I've always kind of looked more mature. So I thought she thought, yeah, she was like, well, we're all in our 40s. I'm like, who's all of us? I'm not in my 40s. So, but hey, even when I reached that 40, I'm sure it was the year after. I didn't feel that way. I don't feel that way now when I'm
Right,
54.
right, right.
So I think it's a matter of belief. It's a matter of confidence. Again, I don't know what her upbringing was, but clearly she didn't have anybody in her ear saying you could be anything you want to be at any point in time. The only obstacle is yourself. She never had. I'm sure she never had that, because had she
Mm,
had that, she would not have stated what she stated. So again, to your listener's point, it has to be belief, because um, but I think one thing I like about Christians, though, and I think Christians are very powerful, is Christians are asked to believe in something, or rather someone whom I'm sort of chuckle a little bit, but someone whom they've never seen,
right,
they've never spoken to, not like you and I are
right,
speaking,
right.
but yet a lot of them have that the belief. A
Hmm.
lot of them have what it takes to be good Christians. So I think Christians are, and not every Christian believes that, but they are in a very advantageous position to live the theme of today's program, to be sort of anything you want to be, to be your best self, and believe in that. Because that's how Christians really have been programmed, right? We've been programmed to believe in somebody whom we've never seen.
Right,
We've
right.
never, he's never sat at a dinner table that I've sat in, at
Mm.
least not physically. But yet we believe. So why is it that we cannot believe if we put one foot in front of the other, we're going to walk out of that door? If we are overweight or anything, or facing any sort of obstacle, if we just focus on this, monitoring what we eat, or if we want to be something other than what we are at this point, if we just take baby steps, eventually we are going to achieve that. So why is it that we cannot believe that, but we say we believe in him with so I think that's
I like that. I like that analogy. That was, it's interesting. I was watching. I like to watch this show. It's called Life Below Zero.
Oh yeah, I watched
Life
that
in
too.
Alaska, right?
Yeah,
And
I watched that too.
Antarctic and all that kind of stuff. Well,
Yeah.
I was watching it this evening, and there was um, I guess they call them Eskimos, I guess, but Native
Hmm.
American from that part of the country, that part of the world. And he was teaching his young son, who was about 4 years old, 5 years old, how to fish.
Hmm.
Never been fishing before. So him and his oldest son were out with this baby boy, and he has a little rod and reel, and they were fishing for salmon. And the salmon are pretty big fish. They
Hmm.
about like this, you know. So
Yeah.
he's out there fishing. So he's like, Dad, am I gonna catch a fish? Am I gonna catch a fish? Because how would I know? He says, you'll know when you got a fish on your line. You'll know it.
Hmm.
Now, the interesting thing about that is that you can't see that fish on that hook. You can't hear that fish on that hook.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing you know about that fish is he's tugging on your line.
Mm-hmm.
You know he's on the line. You can't see him, you can't hear him, you don't speak to him, but he's tugging on the line. And a lot of times that's how Christians are.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see the Lord, we don't hear the Lord, but he's been tugging on our line. We
Mm-hmm.
know we're on the hook. And so he brings us closer to himself until he brings us in, and then we know that he's real, not because we could touch him, not because we could feel him, or not because we could see him, or not because we can speak to him, but because we felt him all the way around from the time he was on the hook until he brought us into the boat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the interesting thing. When you use that analogy, it kind of, that picture just got real clear in my head. And so let me share. Did you see what Daryl said? Well, Anton is really not Anton. That's Louise. So
Mm-hmm.
let me share what Louise said for those of you who can't see it or haven't seen it. I'm blessed to have a prayer line for 9 years and have encouraged many others to form a prayer line, starting with their families. Co-founder of a church and empowering my community. Never thought this would happen to me. Once God gave me the power, I believed in myself and took the ball and ran with it. I always thought I should be in the background, never wanted to be in the front or in the light. And I know she's right. I know she's honest about that. She's true, because I've known Louise since kindergarten. We've known each other a mighty long time. So she's right. She's not the in front person. She's always been the person behind to pull the strings. She's like she's like the whiz behind the curtain. She pulls the strings and makes it happen. But now she's been thrust to the front. And if she didn't take that responsibility seriously, she's never found that purpose in life. And she's doing a marvelous thing for 9 years and is still going strong. And then Darrell says in 1 Peter 4:17, it says, for the time has come that judgment must begin at the house of God. Pop back up, went down. And if it first begins at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God? Maybe some cannot pour out because their pipes are clogged up. And God is using this season to do some plumbing before he turns the water back on. I like that. Kind of jazzy. And then Anna Berry says, I believe I'm using my God-given talent in being a servant and helping God's people, showing love and understanding. I'm a shy person, and never in a million years did I think God would use little old me as a prayer warrior. All I know is when God gives me a directive, I have to answer the call. I can't say no. He's done too much for me. Thank you, Anna. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I think you said something, Marcel, I heard it. You said, if you put one foot in front of the other, if you just go forth in faith, don't worry about where you're going to be at the end of the day. Just take the next step, because the next step will take you closer to where you are going than if you stay in the same spot that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
You have to keep going. You
Right.
can't stop. And if that young lady that spoke at that event was right, man, I don't know where I would be today, because I'd be dead. I mean, I may as well just go ahead and die.
Hey, you and me both. You and me both. I know. I'm making multiples of what I was making back then.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. I mean,
maybe that's her reality.
well, I hope it's no longer her reality, and I hope that she saw something in her life that was worth living for,
Yeah.
and that she's now chasing her passions and not worry about the money.
Mm-hmm.
Because if money is the barometer, I remember when I was in sales and marketing and management, I would tell my agents all the time, I said, look, if money is your objective, you'll never make enough of it, and you'll never have enough.
Mm-hmm.
But if your objective is to serve people and make sure that their needs are met, you will never want as long as you live.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And One thing I didn't mention about her, just to be clear, she
Hmm.
was an employee. Like I said, she worked for, she was a in the fashion industry, so she was an employee. I forget which shop she worked for. It might have been one of the higher end ones. I don't know, Estee
Hmm.
Lauder or whatever. Don't quote me on that. But I say this to say, which goes back to how we started this conversation, how everybody is sort of programmed to be in their place, right?
Mm,
So you are
mm,
more likely to have that mentality from an employee, right? Because think about it for a minute. You get hired, right? You get hired at X amount, whatever that amount is, 100,000, 200, whatever that amount is, okay? Well, you stay here for, 3 to 4, 5 years. We're going to give you this 401k, you'll be vested and so on. We're going to give you these
mm,
incremental raises, maybe 3, 4, 5% on a yearly basis and so on and so forth. So you know what lane you're in. This is my
mm.
lane right here. I know 5 years I'm going to make an X plus Y amount. That's what I've been told, right? And if I increase sales, maybe X plus Y, there's some sort of complicated formula that they'll use, two take away three, something along those lines, and I get the benefits from that. As opposed to an entrepreneur, I think entrepreneurs like your Mark Zuckerbergs, your Elon Musk's, and then your Marcel Florestel's and your Reverend Russells. I think we think differently, right? That the very nature of entrepreneurship is you want to create the lane. You're
Mm.
not in somebody's lane, you are creating the lane.
Right.
So again, so that's why society sort of have a vested interest in having everybody, more people rather, be employees as opposed to as opposed to entrepreneurs, because employees are, everybody has their lane and everybody knows to stay in their lane, or they understand the repercussions, or they think they understand what the repercussions are. You know what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
I hope that's not lost on you. They think they understand what the repercussions are if they get out of their lane. And that's why that young lady was able to say what she said, because she feared of what she perceived to be the repercussions
Right,
if she
right, right,
was
right,
to
right.
sort of get off that lane.
Well, that's interesting because I think you're right. George Carlin, the comic.
Oh yeah, he was one of my
George
favorites. God
Carlin's a
bless him.
comedian, and he said something that's kind of interesting. He said most people work just hard enough not to get fired, and get paid just enough not to quit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. This system is created by design, and they pay you just enough.
Yep,
You're
yep,
able to
yep,
pay
yep,
your rent. You get that 30-year mortgage. So you're on the hook with them for 30 years.
yep, 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 yep. That's right. That's right. You're there. You're not going anywhere.
You're not going
You
anywhere.
stay there, and then you don't break out,
Yeah.
right? I can speak for myself because I know me. I've lived with me all of my life. I remember this so well. As a young man, I was a entrepreneur. I used to promote parties. I was a DJ. I did a number of different things, lots of different things. I remember convincing my uncle to let me paint his houses. He bought a three-family house. I convinced him to let me paint it inside and out. And I hired a couple of my friends to do the work. So now we worked together, but I hired them. Now, when I went to work, I got a job. I was working at Manhattan State Hospital, and I was a therapist aide at the time. And I remember one day saying, and I said this audibly to myself, I don't care if I have to sell pencils on the street. I am leaving here. I was a union representative, and I told my colleagues, I said, I got to go. And so the vice president said, man, you don't quit a state job. You don't do that. I said, I got to go. I can't stay any longer. And I left and I went into the insurance industry. And he was like, yo, man, he said, that's crazy, man. He said, I've got friends that are professional ball players and, all of that. They said, insurance, man, forget that. That's just a farce. I said, man, listen, I'm going to do this because that's where I put my mind. But it was interesting because, and he's retired now. He's retired well. He retired as a nurse and he gets a good pension. But that wasn't my reality. My reality was that I had to make a way for myself. There was a purpose in me that had to be fulfilled that could not be fulfilled at the hospital level. Even if I became a doctor, I would have been like you. I would have been unfulfilled and looking for something else. And so I think at some point, you not only have to, trust yourself, or as we said, believe in yourself, but you have to believe that the things that you desire for yourself have been God-given. They're not just yours by yourself. That you're being inspired to do these things, and to not take heed is literally to be throwing your gifts away, or casting your pearls before the swine. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And you sit there, and your talents, skills, abilities, and all of the blessings that you could give, that you could be, wind up in a bottle sometimes, because people begin to drink, they begin to self-medicate, and it becomes a part of that reality. And I wasn't willing to do that. I've never been willing to do that. Not a day in my life.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Robin. And like I said, it shows. It shows by virtue of this platform that you have here, right? It just shows. It shows that you are one who believes. Just to put it, as simplistically as possible, you are one who believes. Um, like I said, back in the day, a program like that would have been, if it was picked up, would have been picked up in one of the major networks, or PBS at worst. And I respect people like you, entrepreneurs like yourself, who to some extent buck the system. If the system doesn't accept you, you believe you can get along without the system or outside of the system. And I think that's entrepreneurship. And I love using the example of Microsoft. Growing up, and I'm sure you and I more or less were the same generation. Growing up, IBM dominated the computer space. Remember, it was IBM. IBM dominated the computer space. So who's Bill Gates to come along thinking he could compete with IBM? Guess what? Bill Gates said, okay, I don't care if IBM dominates the space. That's what I'm gonna make a place for Microsoft. Now you ask Gen Zers, hey, have you ever heard of IBM? They'll look at you like you got two. They've never heard of IBM.
Uh,
They don't know
Big
who
Blue,
IBM is.
Big
Exactly.
Blue.
Yeah. IBM now, they managed to carve themselves a little space. I think they deal mainly with government, like huge contracts, though, I think with like NASA and all that. That's where they deal with. But IBM used to be like Xerox, even Xerox. That's another
Oh,
example.
yeah.
If you don't
Or
believe
or 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 Kodak.
Kodak, exactly. If you don't believe you can do it, chances are you're right, you can't.
Right.
But if you believe that, hey, yeah, I could do this just as much as they can. And I've always believed that. Hey, why me? And in fact, I didn't say this. Another motivator of mine to that sort of put me in the space that I am now, with the civil rights and so on and so forth, was my natural passion uh, for that space.
Mm,
But also, it was, as I alluded to just a second ago, being tired of sitting on the sidelines and watching other attorneys
mm.
doing what I wanted to do and sort of rooting for them, being on the
Mhm,
sidelines,
mhm,
being
mhm.
like a groupie of sorts, like cheering for them. Eventually, I had to ask myself, dude, why them? Why not you? And Reverend, I'll tell you something. Call it arrogant, whatever people want to call it, but I've always believed that I could stand toe to toe with anybody. The only person that I can't stand toe to toe with is that person with two heads, three eyes,
Mm,
four arms, and as you know, God hasn't created one like that. So to the extent that I'm in my space, the space that I love,
mm,
stand toe to toe with anybody. If you really think about it, God created all of us equal. We don't need the US Constitution to tell us all man was created
That's
equal.
right.
We know this. We know. And even the Constitution says there are inalienable rights,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that you cannot alienate them from Marcel or from Reverend Russell, regardless of what you want, regardless of what you say about them. They're inalienable rights. We're all created equal. If we're all created, yeah, you might beat me, but it's up to me to give up or not.
Right. Right. And you know, my brother likes to say, listen, it's good to get in a good fight, even if you lose.
Yeah,
You know,
there you go.
because
You
you're in the
learn.
fight. If you don't get in the fight, then you don't have anything to talk about. But
Absolutely.
if you get in the fight, whether you lose or not, doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. You know, see,
absolutely.
because I think what we tend to do is we tend to gauge things based upon winning and losing.
Hmm.
I was reading an article just recently, a short article. It says my dad um thrived on failure. Every day we would come home and my dad said, "What did you fail at today?" And of course, um, they would say, "No, I did this." He said, "You didn't fail at anything?" No, he was disappointed. He said, "Because if you don't fail, that means that you didn't try." See, you in order to fail, you got to give something a chance, right? And if you fail, you learn more from your defeats than you do your victory.
Yeah.
If you don't fail at anything, then you're not trying hard enough. You got to fail.
Yeah.
You know, I think there was a book called Fail Your Way to Success.
I think I've heard of that book, but I don't recall reading it though. But I like that title.
Yeah, Fail Your Way to Success.
Fail your way
You
to
know,
success. I
and
like
I
that
get
title.
that because I mean, listen, I've done a lot of things in my life that I thought might be, you know, might be transformative and propel me to another level and all of this, got the next thing. But that didn't happen. You know, the millions of dollars didn't come. But what I've learned in the process, I wouldn't trade it for those millions that I thought I wanted. Because I actually enjoy being who I am today. And if I didn't go through those times of what some people call failures, they're not failures, they're experiences. If I didn't go through those experiences, I could not be who I am today. And you could not be who you are today if you didn't have the experiences that you had. If you had not been with that woman who said at 40 years old, it's all over, you know, then see that she probably won't even remember she said it. But it impacted you and it has stayed with you for over, well, at least a decade, right? So we're talking about things that may not impact other people's lives, but it impacts your life. And if it impacts your life, then there was a purpose for that thing being in your life. And if used properly, it will positively impact the lives of others, just as you've impacted our lives tonight by sharing that story with us. That's the thing I like about, you know, going through the trials and tribulations of life. They teach you. They teach you. You know, I would not, one of the things I do a lot of is I do a lot of homegoing or funeral services, lots of them. And I do it because I understand what it's like to have someone that you love dearly die, and the pain and the break that you feel in your heart. But I also know that a mending takes place. And so it's a great deal of, it gives me a great deal of joy to be able to minister, whether I'm talking or just being in the presence of someone whose loved one has departed. And I'm being very careful that I don't say lost, right? I'm being very careful not to use that word, because when you can't lose something if you know where it's at. And so for me, if the person who has died, if they had the relationship in my tradition with the Lord, I know where they are. So they're not lost. They just went home. And so I'm cool with that. But helping people who are going through the grieving process to be able to understand that and then process it and not completely break down because someone died brings me a great deal of joy. Now, I didn't get there overnight. I got there because I experienced a whole lot of that kind of pain. But now it's it's my experience that I bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So Dolores, let me tell you, Dolores says, God gave me the gift of encouragement. I am able to use this gift to encourage and empower people to overcome obstacles that may cause them to fail in life. And Daryl says, I got a word out of this tonight. I know me, I have strong appetites. I don't want to become ambitious for worldly things. I fear that. Real talk. Seen so many fall because of that. But I am learning that God is leading me and he is taking my trust of him to another level. I got to step out of me, out of my own way, if that makes any sense. I'll throw it back to you. You can say something, Marcel. You can
Okay.
talk about
Yeah.
that. You can talk about Dolores. You can.
Yeah, no, I understand that your counseling comes from many years of having walked the walk and talked the talk, both for good, bad, and ugly. I hope this, trying to make sure what I'm about to say doesn't come off as a bit insensitive or anything like that. But well, let me first start it by saying that I lost my mom when I was the summer of the fifth grade. So however old that was. Okay, so the summer I had just left the fifth grade going into sixth grade, however old that was. That was very traumatic. I'm sure you can imagine. Uh, I recently lost somebody about 3 weeks ago. Somebody who's actually mentioned in my bio.
Mhm.
The federal judge Sterling Johnson. He
Right, right.
passed away recently. So, but for whatever reason, he used to always talk to me. In fact, I spoke to him probably like the week before he died or something. It was close in time. For whatever reason, I still kind of feel like he's with me.
Mm,
It's hard to explain, but I just don't feel like he's gone for whatever reason. And the reason I was a little hesitant about sounding a bit insensitive, I'm thinking, well, I'm sure his family's not is not feeling the same way I'm
mhm.
feeling with respect to feeling him still being there. They probably feel what I felt with when my mom left. So that's what I meant by I didn't want to sound insensitive because hey, maybe maybe his daughter and his son they probably feel that he's gone as opposed to he's still around. So I guess where I'm going with this is, and I didn't want to make it seem like I've I'm to the point where you are with respect to handling, death in situations like that, because I guess to a large extent you do that for a living, to a
Mhm.
large extent, because you speak at these sermons and funerals and so on and so forth. That's not what I do. But it was interesting though, and sometimes it's I don't know about you, but sometimes I don't I almost like feel like I'm a third person observing myself, and I
Mm.
was a little bit surprised that I feel the way that I do, as if he's still around, as opposed to oh, this guy, he's gone, he's dead. I could never see him no more, and I don't really know what to attribute that to. Uh, you know, Maturity, time, having lost a mom before.
Mhm.
Once you lose a parent, could anything be less? Could anything be worse? I would imagine, God forbid, losing a child would be equally, or if not worse. But besides that, can anything be worse? I don't know. So it was just interesting how I handled it. I did break down for a quick second. I was actually another friend of mine who was also close to them. I recall um, calling him up and telling him that the judge had passed away, I recall bursting into tears for whatever reason. But after that, I was okay because it was almost like it almost feels like he's still around for whatever reason. I'm not even kidding because he used to tell me all the time, Marcel, that big case of yours, that's coming. So I still kind of hear him every now and then saying that for whatever reason. So I just wanted to share that
But
with your
that's
listeners.
but those are good points. It's interesting because I didn't know that about you, and so this is an interesting point. It gives me an opportunity to bring this to your attention. Your mom died a little earlier in your life than my mom died. I was 14 years old when my mother died,
Mm,
and she dropped dead in front of all of us.
mm,
She was a young lady, probably like your mom. My mom was 38.
mhm,
So my mom has been dead 50 years.
mm.
My dad died 5 years after that. Now, let me share this with you because this is one of the things that I share with people all the time. I have a closer relationship with my parents today than I probably would have had if they were alive. And one of the reasons is because there are no obstacles in my relationship with them. See, because if they were living, we would disagree on some things, now wouldn't we? They would say one thing, I'd say another. They would think one way, I'd think something else. But what I remember of my parents, and I remember conversations, I remember smells, I remember all kinds of stuff. But I remember all of the things that they said to me that made sense, that I argued with and I pushed back on and all that kind of stuff. There's nowhere to push anymore, right? It's like shadow boxing. I got nothing to punch. And so my relationship with them is absolutely phenomenal. And they are in my heart. They go with me everywhere. And they don't have to reprimand me, they don't have to chastise me because they're in my heart. I do it to myself. I think about what they would want me to do, and I think about what would make them proud. I think about that. And those are the things that kind of propel me, not to make them feel good, but what would I want them to see in me? And so I live my life not trying to live in their shadow nor in a ghostly kind of a way, but how would my parents, what would they think about me and the things that I'm doing with my life? Would they be proud? Remember that movie? I can't think of the name. You'll remember. I See Dead People. Remember that one with Bruce
Yeah,
Willis?
yeah, yeah.
Right.
Mhm,
And the little boy's mother, her mother had died, and he saw her, and she spoke to him, and she said, "Tell her I'm proud of her."
mhm,
And his mother broke down in tears and all that kind of stuff. Well, we won't have those kinds of encounters in reality, but to think that my parents would be proud of who I am, the things that I do, the difference that I try to make in other people's lives, makes me feel good about my parents because I know they love me. And so I don't I would love to have had my parents see me as an adult because my parents died. I was not an adult when I was 20 years old when my dad died. I was 20. He never saw me, graduate from college. He never saw me, get a real job and never saw me get in a part. He never saw any of those things. But if he were to see me now, would he be proud? And that's what lives in me. It never departs. That's a part of the purpose that God called me for, because as I live my life, I help others to live their lives because they can see me. I don't talk about it. I don't go around bragging and boasting or anything like that, but they see it in me. And when they see it, it gives them the right to live their lives in a way that honors their people historically, the legacies.
Absolutely.
So that's what I think. That's, for people who lost, if you will, their parents died when they were young, they never left you. They just had to leave here.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I definitely understand. I definitely understand what you're saying. And but being that we are here, I would be remiss if I were not to say that, we should all be well invested in making sure that we create the best life possible for ourselves and for our families, friends, and our posterity, which is actually doubling back to how we started this conversation,
Yes.
at least my position, making sure, that the sliver of uh, the portion, if you will, that I could affect within our society. And for me, being a lawyer, practicing lawyer, I think what I could bring value to is making sure that when you or any one of your listeners, or obviously myself, stand before somebody who wears a black robe, that person is at least minimally qualified, and to
Mm,
whatever extent that I can, that person would have been vetted and not hold any biases against you for any unwarranted purpose. Again, I say to any extent that could affect that, because as you know, it's very easy to hide biases, but to the extent that I can. So I say this to say that the same holds true with respect to, we just had an election last Tuesday, election day,
mhm.
and we all know that and maybe I shouldn't presume I know the demographics of, or rather the political leanings of your listeners. But if you don't get involved with your community, just like I'm getting involved with the judicial system, I would urge your listeners to get involved with their community
Mm,
uh, politically too. Um, I'm not espousing any Democratic or Republican ideology, but hey, if you are Republican, get involved with the party. Make sure that they uh, they're aligned with your beliefs, and try to vouch for them. If you're a Democrat, likewise, get involved with your community and try to push through your Democratic representatives too, so that this country will uh, be heading in the direction that you envision it heading. Because a lot has changed. A lot has changed since you and I were kids, and unfortunately, a lot has changed for the better, but a lot has changed for the worse. Let's keep it real. A lot has changed for the worse, and we need to make sure that our voices are heard at the ballot box during the times that matter, and the times that matter are, uh, you know. Any election Tuesday, okay, in November, election day, Tuesday in November. Those times matter. So I will continue to do what I'm doing with respect to helping get our judicial system in place. But I would urge your listeners to do their part with respect to making sure they elect the right people to represent their values.
Well, that's a good point. Matter of fact, last week, the day before election day, that's exactly what we talked about
Hmm.
about getting out to vote. I had two wonderful individuals on the line with me that talked about the importance of voting and the importance of selecting people, whatever your party affiliation may be, that
Hmm.
represents your thoughts, your ideas, and the best for humanity. And see to it that those are the ones who are sitting in the offices and sitting in those chairs representing us as a people.
Hmm.
Because if not, then if you shun the responsibility, then what happens is God winds up having to work with the people who are left because you didn't do your job.
Mm-hmm.
He gives you the responsibility. You know, he's not gonna go into the booth and cast the vote for you. You got to do that yourself. So you got
Absolutely.
some work to do. You know, just like with the disciples, he said, look out among yourselves and choose those who are full of the Holy Ghost. Choose and let them put them over this business.
Yeah.
Well, if he did that, what do you think you're supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
You have to do your due diligence, do what you're supposed to do. Nobody's going to give you anything without efforts.
Absolutely.
You know, I remember, you know, in the book of Ruth, there's a great story in there. You know, Ruth, you know, those of you don't know the story of Ruth, whose husband died, or her mother-in-law's husband died, her sister-in-law's husband died, and she went back with Naomi to her land, went back with her. And so she was trying to take care of her mother-in-law. So she was gleaning in the harvest in the field. And of course, in those days, they would not, the farmers would not take everything from the field. They would leave some on the side for the poor and indigent to get. And so when Boaz found out that what Ruth had been doing for his cousin, he honored that and said, listen, don't go to anybody else's field, just come here and I'll make sure that you have enough. In fact, if you get thirsty, go over there, they'll give you something to drink. You get hungry, they'll feed you too. So he took care of her because she took care of his cousin and her mother-in-law. He honored that because she honored her mother-in-law. He honored her. And as it turns out, Boaz, who was not her first cousin, he was like her second cousin. But in those days, relatives would marry the widows of their dead or deceased cousins or family members so that they would have a place to stay and they could take care of them. Well, Boaz married Ruth. And Boaz's marriage of Ruth led to the birth of Christ. So Ruth is in the line of Christ. And Ruth was from a country in Africa. See, when you start putting all these pieces together, they really look nice. You know, they really make a beautiful menagerie, a beautiful puzzle coming together. But it's amazing what happens when you honor, when you fulfill your purpose. She felt her purpose was to make sure that her mother-in-law would be able to survive. Her purpose. And the Lord blessed that. Ruth was blessed immensely. And because of it, her mother-in-law was blessed. And because of it, they are in line. They became an ancestor to the Christ, who everybody knows what he did and blah, 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 blah. And even if you don't believe in him, you have to acknowledge that he was real because we measure even our time based upon his birth and his death. We measure time based on AD and BC, before Christ and AD, right? So even if you don't believe in him, our time is based on him. So amazing stuff, amazing stuff. So I thank you for sharing that. By the way, we're almost out of time, so I'm going to turn it over to you and let you share your final remarks and things like that. And I've got something that the Lord placed on my heart that I want to share with everyone. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Marcel, and you can share with any way you want. And then I'll come back with my final remarks.
Absolutely. So, you know, I hope everybody enjoyed what I had to share today. And feel free if you have legal needs, feel free to reach out to me.
Give us
Reverend,
a way to do that. Give
yeah,
us a way to do that.
yeah.
Give me a number. I'll put it in the chat box for
Oh,
everybody.
okay. I was gonna say that. Okay. Yeah, 212-918-4416. That's my office number.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do you one even better. I'll leave you my cell phone number and feel free to call me directly. You could circumvent my office. You could contact me directly
Excellent. Give it to me.
at 718-644-2702. Call me directly in the cell if you have legal needs. that you feel, well, just feel free to call me and I will assist you as best that I can.
644-270-2718, right?
Yes, exactly.
Got it. Got it. So thank you, man. I really appreciate that. I really do. And let me just share this with you before I say my closing remarks. Let me share this with you. Marcel and I have done some work together. Hey, what's up, man? How you doing? Marcel and I have done some things together, and I had him to put together for one of my clients a trust document that actually has been extremely helpful to the family because that individual had passed away. But because of the expertise in which he was able to put it together, and not one, he did it for two. We did it for two individuals that both passed away, but both of them having passed away, they left a legacy that was intact. So I'm vouching for his credibility. He knows what he's doing. I know he does. And he's a little younger than I am, so I have a little experience on him, but I can tell you he does know what he's doing. And I'm really excited because, you know, heretofore, I didn't know a lot of attorneys that worked in the estate planning field. It was difficult to find a person of color who worked in the area of estate planning. But now we have those individuals who can help in that area. And that's a critical area. Please don't overlook that area. It's extremely important. Okay. So here's my questions for you tonight. I want y'all to hear this as I close out. Are you in danger of enriching the cemetery with your unused God-given gifts, talents, and abilities? Have you been able to identify the ministry God has called you to? What talent, skill, ability has He equipped you with that you might not be fulfilling? E.E. Cummings said, it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. I have a friend, Lamar Duke, who has gone on to be with the Lord. And he used to say something that I always thought about, and very interestingly, and he would say that you need to be on the right bus, sitting in the right seat, and going in the right direction. Have you ever asked yourself if you are on the right bus, sitting in the right seat, and heading in the right direction? Are you using your God-given talents, skills, and abilities in your God-given ministry, fulfilling your God-given purpose? Have you ever really considered that you have been called for a purpose? I thank God for my guest tonight, my friend and my brother, Marcel Florestal. This brother who has chosen a field to serve that has historically been foreign to people of color, estate planning, taxation, all of those things that mean so much, but we're actually so limited in our ability to access them. Yet he's distinguished himself and provides services that were sorely missing in communities, particularly communities of color. Not to mention what he's been doing in the area of law and trying to level the playing field so that justice is dispensed from the bench. That's important because many people aren't familiar with not only estate planning, but they're also unfamiliar with the ways in which the judicial system does not function properly. They know about it, but they can't explain it nor work it through. But he can, because he's following and living in the purpose that God has called him to. So let me tell you, if you haven't figured out what your purpose is, you have to do that. Because when you do that, then you will be able to do those things that you were conceived, developed, and born for. Find your purpose. Thank you, Marcel, for your commitment to your purpose. Not only are you going to take your gifts, talents, and skills to glory when you go, but they will never occupy a space in the grave. Never. Because you ain't gonna let that happen. And I'm so glad. You're working to make sure that people leave more than their own reputation, but people leave a legacy. And thank you for helping them to do that. By looking at the call to purpose, your call, you've widened our understanding of estate planning, of purpose-centered life, of living on purpose and being in your purpose arena. I truly thank you, my brother from another mother, younger brother from another mother. Oh, by the way, he plays golf too, so we'll talk about that later. but you all may not know it. I mentioned it earlier, but Marcel has been my guest before. Before we started airing on Facebook, before we started doing Zoom. You didn't get a chance back then to see his handsome face. He had hair then, but you got to see him tonight. So now, Mr. Marcel Florestal, I want to ask you to prepare yourself for another visit on Matters of Faith. Is that all right with you? Can you do that? Perfect, because I really want to get
Absolutely.
we got a lot to talk
Absolutely.
about. You got a lot to talk about. And we were talking about doing something, and maybe I'll just do it from this forum too, is to have a workshop on estate planning and taxation. And I'll look at it from the insurance perspective and doing it from that way, and you can do the other side. Maybe we'll do it here just to prime the pump and get everybody engaged in that conversation. Now, don't forget our sponsors and advertisers, the JLR company, which I'm just talking about now, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, for all your church financial needs, as well as your personal financial planning needs. Call 718-328-8096 or visit our website, www.jlaurenrussellconsulting.com. At the JLR company, J. Lauren R. Consulting LLC, it's not about the castle, it's about the kingdom. Matters of Faith, the book, you've heard me talk about it tonight, but Matters of Faith, the book, this is it. You can get it by sending $23.40 to my Cash App, $ Matters of Faith, and we will send it out. Just make sure that you put your name, address, telephone number, you know, that kind of thing, so I can get it to you. Make sure that you do that. Or you can get the book as a ebook, and you get that at smashwords.com, www.smashwords.com/books/view/993177. Now, I put it in the chat box before. I'll put it in the chat box again, just so that you know where you can get it. www.smashwords.com, and you'll be able to get that book using that application. Is that good? That helps? Good. Now, physical, oh, by the way, there's a 50% discount if you use the coupon that you find there. Triumph Physical Therapy for all your musculoskeletal needs. Call Triumph before you take that pill or schedule that surgery. 212-234-2900. 212-234-2900. Now, Love Thy Neighbor Incorporated. Please make your contributions to them today. They are looking right now to distribute turkeys for Thanksgiving, and they need your help and your support. Find them on their Facebook page or their website, www.lovethyneighbor7.org. That's www.lovethyneighbor7.org. And please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Telephone, text, email, message, any way you do it, but tell a friend to join us next Monday on Matters of Faith, the radio show. I can't tell you what the topic will be or who my guest will be, but I can tell you that you don't want to miss the show, because it's going to be a phenomenal, mind-blowing experience. You don't want to miss it. Telephone and tell a friend. We will be live on Matters of Faith and the J. Lauren Russell Facebook groups. Then we will drop that episode like we're going to do tonight. We're going to take this episode and download it onto our Matters of Faith YouTube channel. Share that with your friends, colleagues, relatives, and associates. Matter of fact, share it with Frank, friends, relatives, acquaintances, neighbors, and kids, and let them check this show out tonight. Now, subscribe, like, and share the YouTube channel so that it continues to grow and develop into what we want it to be. Now, let me do one thing just before I do my final closing and
Don't forget our
benediction.
sponsors and advertisers.
I want to do one thing before I do my final closing. I want to make sure that you see who I'm talking about tonight and who I just spoke to. So let me share my screen with you for the last time. Just want to share that with you. Now, the Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Now, if no one told you this today, let me be the first to say that I love you, and there's absolutely nothing that you can do about it. Good night. God bless you, and be well. We'll see you next week. Same bad time, same channel. God bless. Be well. Don't hang up yet. You got to stay right there for a second.